Welcome to The Explainer, where we turn complex news into clear, actionable intelligence. All right, let's jump right in.
Look, we get it. There's so much news out there every single day. Our job here is to cut right through all that noise. We're going to take 15 major topics and boil them down for you in just 5 minutes, taking you from chaos to clarity.
So, here's the plan for today. We've got 5 main sections, starting with what's happening on the global stage, and we'll take it all the way through to how you can actually use this information.
Okay, first up, global flashpoints. We're starting in what is probably the world's most critical choke point right now, a place where diplomacy is breaking down and threatening to shake up the entire global system.
And the main event really is this US-Iran nuclear standoff. High-stakes peace talks have just completely collapsed, and that's a huge deal with some pretty serious potential fallout.
You really can't overstate how serious this is. I mean, these were the highest-level direct talks between the US and Iran since 1979, and they failed. Now, a very fragile ceasefire is on the brink. Both sides have drawn their red lines. The US is demanding Iran stop its nuclear program, period. Meanwhile, Iran is demanding the release of about £900 million in frozen assets. They're at a complete standstill, and that's dangerous.
And this right here, this number shows you exactly what's at stake. 20%, a full 1/5 of the entire world's oil and natural gas flows right through the Strait of Hormuz. So, a blockade? Yeah, that would be felt everywhere almost immediately. So this whole situation creates a really interesting, kind of weird paradox. Look at this. On the one hand, energy prices are going through the roof. Brent crude is up around $95 a barrel. But on the other hand, food prices? They've barely budged. But here's the catch, and you have to watch this. That stability could be a bit of an illusion. Because think about it. Higher energy costs eventually mean higher fertilizer costs, and that will hit food production down the line.
Okay, so with all that happening, let's shift our focus to India and see how it's navigating these really choppy geopolitical waters, trying to balance its own interests on multiple fronts. And what we're seeing is a textbook case of what experts call multi-alignment in action. On one side, you have India standing its ground, firmly rejecting China's claims over Arunachal Pradesh. But at the exact same time, it's deepening economic ties with the West, like with this huge new trade deal with the UK. It's a masterclass in strategic autonomy, charting its own course, and it's a policy that's even getting praise from countries like Ireland.
All right, let's bring it home now. We're turning inward to look at some of the key legal and social debates that are really shaping India today.
And front and center is the Sabarimala Temple case. This is a massive one. The Supreme Court is tackling a really fundamental constitutional question here, all about the line between religious freedom and the state's power.
This is a big deal because it could literally redefine the relationship between the government and religious institutions for decades. It's a classic constitutional clash. You've got Article 25, which protects an individual's right to religion, bumping up against Article 26, which protects the collective rights of a religious group. The final word on this is going to be huge.
Now for something completely different, but just as important, women's representation in politics. And what we're seeing is a story of two very different realities.
This chart just says it all, doesn't it? The 73rd Amendment was a game changer for local government. I mean, look at that. 46% of representatives in local bodies are women. That's incredible. But then you look at the national level, the Lok Sabha, and that number drops all the way down to just over 13%, a really stark difference.
And this theme of access to justice, well, it continues with these next 2 points. First, for transgender rights, there's a lot of anxiety over a new amendment. Why? Because it could undermine the Supreme Court's landmark ruling on self-identification. And second, there's the massive backlog in the courts. We're talking over 4.6 crore pending cases. And one editorial argues this is made even worse by these old colonial-era courthouse designs that can make people feel alienated from the very system that's supposed to help them.
And that brings us to this powerful quote from Dr. B.R. Baker. Constitutional morality is not a natural sentiment. It has to be cultivated. It's such a great way to put it. The argument is that truly respecting the Constitution is about more than just following the words on the page. It's about actively nurturing its democratic heart and soul.
All right, moving on to our next section. Let's talk about the engines of change, the economy, science and tech, and the environment. We'll look at innovations, reforms, and some big ecological challenges. Here's a great example of a major policy debate happening in agriculture. It's all about fertilizer reform. The push is to move towards more efficient options, like triple superphosphate, or TSP. As you can see, it packs way more phosphorus, nearly 3 times as much as the standard single superphosphate, which means better nutrients for the crops.
And this next slide is just a whirlwind of activity, showing how policy, science, and the environment are all connected. You've got experts pushing for better ways to handle fertilizer subsidies. You've got the Supreme Court trying to balance housing rights with tribal forest rights. Up in the Himalayas, a court has stepped in to save vital oak trees. And then you have these amazing breakthroughs, right? Scientists in Kashmir have cultivated the super rare morel mushroom in a lab for the first time ever. And finally, a look at how weight loss drugs work differently for different people, which really highlights the future of medicine, tailoring treatments right down to our genes.
Okay, we have covered a ton of ground, but now comes the most important part. How do we turn all of this news, all this information, into something truly useful for you?
Because, really, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Especially if you're preparing for competitive exams. How do you take this daily briefing and turn it into a high-scoring answer? It's one thing to know the news, but it's another thing entirely to know how to use it.
Well, it's actually a pretty straightforward two-step process. First, you've got to master the framework. Use the big questions from the news to structure your thinking and connect all these different dots. And second, you have to deepen your knowledge. Go beyond just the headlines and build a really comprehensive understanding.
And to help you do exactly that, we've put together a complete PDF. It has everything we've talked about today and more. We've structured it all with mains questions, essay outlines, and even prelims MCQs to help you master these topics.
So how do you get it? Just join our Telegram channel. The link is right there on the screen, and we've also put it in our bio or the description below. Thanks so much for joining us for The Explainer.